Hello fellow language learning nerds, welcome to another video. Today I'm doing a little video that I've called Bumps in the Language Learning Road, and I may revisit this topic at a later date because I feel like when you're learning a language there are a few times in your language learning journey where you come across a bump in the road, and by that I mean you come across something in the language that you start to really struggle with, and it gets a bit tough, and usually at that point your motivation gets really low. You may be tempted just to be like, I ain't doing this anymore, I don't need this stress in my life. And I wanted to talk about one of the first times I came across this while learning Japanese. And it was when I learned a little thing called the te form. Now, I will explain it in case you haven't come across it yet in your own language learning journey of Japanese. Or maybe you have come across it and maybe you yourself might be like, oh, I didn't have too much trouble with that. But there might be a few, maybe, that might be like, I think I know exactly where this is going. Because I feel like this is might be a common first real struggle when trying to learn Japanese, the te form. But okay, so let me just quickly go over what the te form is. So you know when you have a verb and you change the end of it to kind of slightly adjust the meaning. For example, in English we might have the word to eat, and you might change the end to be eaten or eating. Something like that, just to slightly change the meaning. The te form is one of those sorts of things in Japanese. You adjust the end of the verb so that you can do things with the meaning with it. And it's called the te form because when you change the verb at the end, there's the sound te. Tabete, mite, kaite, kite, chotto matte. Before in class, the teacher introduced us to the te form. We had done other changes to the verb, like making it past tense or making it negative. And those were kind of like, okay, I'm gonna learn this thing. Okay, this is the rule. Okay, I get it. I understand it. Okay. And it's not too much of a struggle for the brain to get around. But then I feel like the te form is where the teacher has to be like, okay, we're going to study this for a little bit. And these are the rules. Because really, this is the first time you really have to kind of start grouping, well, at least for in my class, because we when we were learning Japanese, we learnt the mass form of verbs, which is, I think, the slightly easier version than doing the casual form of verbs, which I know some classes start with that. But the te form, I feel like, yeah, our teacher kind of sat us down and was like, I'm going to have to explain these rules, and you have to think, before you say this verb, you have to be like, so what's at the end of this verb? Okay, so that means I have to now do this with it, and then I can add the te, and that's what I do. But this verb is completely different, so I'm going to have to change this at the end, and then add the te in this way. And it feels very complicated, and at the time when I was learning it, it was the first time I was like, oh, this is pretty difficult. I don't know if I'm ever going to be able to remember this. And a part of me, I got through it a little bit by thinking, if I learn this, if I manage to get through to it, then that's it, then it's done. I cannot think about the te form for a while to give my brain a rest. Turns out the te form is one of the most important things you learn in Japanese because you use it for a lot of things. Like, I feel like every other new grammar structure, the teacher says, okay, we're going to do this new thing and we're going to start by using the te form. There are even songs you can learn to try and remember the pattern of how to change the verbs. You can Google them, you can look them up on YouTube, and there are little songs that will try and help you remember how to change the verb, depending on which verb it is, how to change it into its te form. Which sometimes isn't even a te sound, it's a de sound. the songs do help. The songs do help. There was a time where every time I was, it was like about a month where every time I needed to change a verb into its te form, I kind of sat there in my head being like, ite. Okay, cool. I got it. Going back for a second to it being the first bump in the road that I had, it was really difficult for me to learn. And yeah, I had those thoughts of I'll never learn it. I will never learn it. And you know, that's when the first real thoughts of, oh, maybe I shouldn't, maybe this isn't for me, maybe I can't do this. Those sorts of thoughts kind of start to settle in. I do wonder if it's also a common dropping off point for a lot of learners, because that's when you're starting to realise, well, at least for me, starting to realise just how much time and effort you're going to have to put into this to try and conquer it. I wanted to bring up this particular hurdle, this first hurdle that I kind of ever had with Japanese. I wanted to bring it up because I wanted to share the fact that now that I was able to get past it, I now kind of use that experience to kind of help me get through any other bumps in the road, any particular struggles that I come across. You know, after learning the te form, even now, and I'm probably going to be using it in the future. In fact, I'm currently going through one of those bumps in the road because we're learning politeness. I won't get into that right now, but it's a whole thing. I do use the memories and experiences of learning the te form to help me get through other bumps in the road, to help remind myself that I can get through it. If I give myself time, if I'm patient with myself, I can learn this, and remind myself that, yeah, with this particular hurdle, one day it will feel like the te form now, where I look back and I'm like, oh, I got through that, and it's become so much more easier. So it's like I'm able to, even if I'm struggling with something right now, I can think to myself, oh, but one day it's going to become easier. It won't feel like this thing to try and learn. But yeah, that's pretty much, I think, all I kind of wanted to say. I just wanted to bring up, this was one of the things that I struggled with, and now that I'm past it, I use those experiences to help me with other things that I'm going through, and that I'm probably going to go through as well, because there's still a long road ahead of me with learning Japanese. I would genuinely like to know if anyone else also struggled with the te form, or if there was something before learning the te form that you thought was particularly difficult, or basically anything of your language learning journey that you had trouble with, that you thought was an impossible thing but you managed to get through it. I think that would be really, really interesting to hear about what other people have experienced, whether it's similar or dissimilar to my own. But that's it for today. Enough rambling from me, so I will let you get on with the rest of your day. And remember, may your grammar be structured and your vocabulary varied. Bye!